All right, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want to share the video so others can join in with us. We're already getting comments coming in. Father, you want to start us in prayer tonight?
Me or him?
Father Glenn.
Okay, sure. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Good and gracious God, we ask you to guide your church with the power of your Holy Spirit. Conform us to the image of your Son, and strengthen us as we live for this moment, this moment of pandemic, this moment of moving forward to serve your people faithfully. We ask this through that same Christ who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
All right. How many weeks has it been since we did this last? Our quarantined and Catholic.
I think 7.
7?
Yeah.
It's been 2 months since been 2 months since the liquor stores closed, which was the kind of watershed moment for many of us.
Yeah. So let's reintroduce ourselves, and then if you're watching us with us replay at home, then you can go ahead and comment your questions. I can see everything, and I will be able to show our other theologians, I guess we want to start by calling them, maybe loosely, here on
armchair.
A what?
Armchair theologian.
Yeah.
Preface.
So go ahead, and who wants to start? Give a little introduction, what you've been up to in quarantine since we last chatted.
I guess I'll start. My name is Jesse Martin. I'm the pastoral associate at a Church of the Resurrection in Muncie, and it feels like all these months is just it's kind of like another Lent, but we've definitely been busy prepping for the reopen of the public masses, trying to figure out the sacraments, how do we do this, and everything is pretty much unprecedented the type of territory. So and so I'm trying to figure out, how do we church, right? How do we be Catholic in this time? But what does look like to be Catholic? And I think we're trying to figure that out. So there's a lot of unknowns, but I'm excited to, at least in my own life, I think it's been just a great opportunity to just like step up and have a reminder that the faith is just not coming to a building every week, right? The faith is meant to be lived at home, and so it's been basically just trying to figure out all of those things, and I've been still there's just a lot of unknown. So,
And I'm Glenn McCreary, pastor at Church of the Resurrection, and it has been 2 months, which I was reminded of because now that we're starting to take appointments for confession, almost every confession is, well, I went right before. So it's a precise 2 month time. We've done things that we never imagined we would be doing as priests, as people, as church. I know that, and all of this takes so much work, whether it's on the diocesan level, the parish level, or even personally. it just takes a lot of work to sort out how, as Jesse said, how do we be church? How do we live these sacramental and God-centered mysteries of our lives, and with the new realities? And they're going to be with us for, I know we're in the yellow phase right now, but we're going to be with these questions and these challenges for a good long time. So it's, we're not done by any means. We still have work to do.
And my name is Father Brian Van Fossen, and I'm the pastor at St. Parish in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And it's awesome to be here again. It is different, It's talking to brother priests who are trying to be there for anointings, and the struggle that's been upon our healthcare workers. We've been praying the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass privately, but also just prayers for them and for all those been affected by COVID-19 in any way. And now that we're in this yellow phase, it's interesting because you hear where those prayers have been coming from and the different effects of prayer, which is kind of neat. You don't necessarily sometimes hear the miracles that are taking place in our world today. And there are miracles that are working in people's lives, either healing from a family member or communication of people that they haven't talked to in a while. So even though we've been doing a lot of things online and all, I'm more of very much of a extrovert, personal, in your face type of person. So masks and all that other stuff is weird to me. But it's nice to get back to somewhat of a conversation with people and just being with people as best as we possibly can. And that would include, not only our clerks and everybody else that we're so indebted to, but also the people who are coming to our parishes for confession now, for prayer, for signing up for the Mass, different things of that nature. So it's been really, really inspiring in some ways. And it was a little thing, a buddy of mine from up in Maine, we were talking and he said, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm actually more tired now than I was before." And he goes, "How can that be? You have all this time on your hands." And I'm like, "You got to remember, for a person who loves to be around people, being by yourself is exhausting. So I got a puppy." So that's a big thing and a big shift that's been taking place in my life in order to be around a little figure that eats and sleeps and does other things. So that's kind of neat. But those types of things have been a big part of that.
I'm in the same boat with a 9-month-old. A lot of people are doing.
All right, and I'm Makenzie Connor. I'm the Director of Youth Ministry at St. Joseph the Worker Parish here in Williamsport. So I work with Father Brian along with Father Glenn and Jesse in the Church of the Resurrection as well. So we are coming to you live. We're waiting to see some questions come up. I think we had one question submitted already. So you guys ready for that?
Sure.
Post that? All right. And then we can just kind of talk, chat, hang out. It's pretty informal tonight. And then hopefully to update people on what life is looking like living in the yellow phase here in Pennsylvania in the Diocese of Scranton in the Williamsport area. So, all right, so first question is up on your screen. I realize the obligation to attend Sunday Mass remains suspended for those in the yellow phase, but shouldn't the obligation remain to attend virtually if that's possible?
The answer is no. It's a good idea. I hear what people are saying, and it's a virtuous thing to engage, particularly on the Lord's Day, to engage in prayer that's united to his sacrifice, that recognizes this is the day of the Lord's resurrection. But the obligation has never been extended beyond actually showing up to Mass. While this is very wonderful to have all this in front of us, what you see right now are pictures, very sophisticated pictures. They move, they talk, they sound just like it, but it's a picture. That's why we can't do what some of our Protestant sisters and brothers have been doing. We cannot invite you to put bread and wine in front of your computer screen and have it changed into the body and blood of Christ, because a picture can't do that.
Mhm.
And we have a strange relationship as Catholics with pictures and icons and statues, but they can't affect a change. So that's part of the rationale behind that, is that nobody was obliged, for example, during the Black Plague, when you couldn't go to Mass, they were not obliged to get a prayer book that had engravings of the Mass in it to watch it. So no, there is no obligation to attend virtually. If watching something on a computer just drives you crazy, you go in your garden and say the rosary, do something that does engage you in prayer.
But I think, Father, you also raise a very good point, in the sense that as Catholics, for us, the Eucharist is central to who we are. So receiving the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament is the aspect of worship that we enter into. The liturgy of the Word and the Scriptures are beautiful, and they're wonderful. And to listen to hymnody, and to listen to Christian music, or whatever the case may be, is great prayer, and it leads our hearts into a greater relationship with God. But as Catholics, it is that presence of Jesus in the most blessed sacrament that is centralized to us. So, one of the things that it would be like, the obligation of attending virtually would almost, kind of like be that sense of not having the main person present in your home, or in the space that you are, in order to receive him, in order to bring him into yourself. And that will always be a lack within any virtual setting, because like you're saying, Father, you can't just put bread and wine in front of a computer screen and it becomes the body of Christ. It's not magic. It's that gift of the Lord that he gave us on that last day that's going to be a hard shift, because I think many people are thinking, well, oh my gosh, we should do all live streaming all the time, and then I could be home and sitting in my pajamas. But that's not the pinnacle of who we are as Catholics. It is receiving the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. And
think too of just about, I guess, 6 weeks ago or so, when the Holy Father did his Urbi et Ubi blessing over the world, that was an extraordinary thing. And it's that blessing would be conferred electronically. That's not normal. Like when we were talking in the early stages of, how do we get through Holy Week? One of the questions that did get thrown out there, can we bless Palm remotely? And the answer came no. It takes the Vicar of Christ to make that exception, which does happen on actually Christmas and Easter each year, and when a pope is elected, that happens. But that's an extraordinary thing. Normally, we're an incarnational people. There are supposed to be bodies in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
All right. The next question comes from Connery McFadden. How do you plan to reopen your church during this yellow phase? I think before we answer this question, it's wise to say that every church is doing it different, even in the Williamsport area. So if you are tuning in and you're not from St. Joseph the Worker or Resurrection, just to contact your local parish, as well as how are they going to handle that. But I think we can just maybe put some details of what the yellow phase looks like for Williamsport.
So I think the other thing that I would add to it also is being where we're at in the diocese. If we go south of or go west of us to Lock Haven or to Milton or to Lewisburg, they have different procedures as well based off of the diocese. So for the Diocese of Scranton, we are allowed to have 25 people to attend the Holy Mass and to be present in the churches at a given time. And what we're trying to do is trying to figure out a way of also receiving people into the church who are supposed to come into the church on Easter Sunday. So our Sunday celebrations are going to be really focused on, at St. Joseph the Worker, is going to be really focused on the people who are in the RCIA and the RCIC, our baptisms, as well as our as well as our confirmandi and our first communicants. So we're kind of going off of Resurrection, who has a long history of this, which is having baptism in Mass. So instead of trying to always clean the space and whatever it is, making sure that's clean. And, right. So when we're doing that, instead of trying to get that confusing, what happens is the fact that what we're doing is we are doing it within the context of the Mass. And that way the family can attend, they can attend Mass as a family, and all that. And so it creates that sense of family for baptism. That's something that we haven't done at St. Joseph the Worker, but in order for this phase, that's something that we're going to be doing a little bit differently during this yellow phase. And the other thing also that we're doing is changing our weekday Mass times in order to allow people to come to the Holy Mass who may not be able to because of their work schedule. So we are adding 2 evening Masses on Tuesday and Thursday in order for them to attend at least a weekday Mass if they cannot attend a weekend Mass based off of the numbers. So it's a slow, soft opening, and we're not trying to rush it, and we're not really trying to move really quickly forward into it. It's just you have to call the office or you have to fill out an online form, and that will place you in a docket. And once that Mass is filled, then we go on to the next Mass, and et cetera. So it's not necessarily, doors are wide open and such like that. We only could allow 25. And this is what a lot of people have been asking as well. Yes, that includes me. That includes Father McCreary. That includes lectors and altar servers if we have them, or any type of music. All of those people are the part of that 25. So in all reality, it's 23 or 24
or 20.
Mm-hmm.
20.
That's right.
If you have 2 musicians, you're down to 20. If you have somebody running the camera, you're down to 20. And all of this, I mean, it is different in each parish, but we're all falling under the guidance and the restrictions, the freedoms that Bishop Mbera put out for us at the beginning of this yellow phase. And he certainly took a great deal of time deliberating with priests, with healthcare, people with healthcare backgrounds, with people involved in different parts of parish life, different regions in the diocese. He had a lot of conversation about how can we move forward, what's the best way to manage letting in a few people at a time. And many of the things that we're doing are recommendations that came out, which you can see very quite easily on the diocesan website. Many of them are recommendations that came out of weeks of very labored conversation about what makes sense, how free do we want to leave it to parishes to make their own decisions, what are the varieties of responses that might be available. A lot has to do with how your building's laid out. A lot has to do with your own capacity to have volunteers who can properly sanitize, who can work that piece in there. Certainly live streaming is something we're encouraged to keep in place for the sake of the most vulnerable populations, those who are already ill, who have vulnerable immune systems, those who are elderly. So a lot of this it gets shaped very particularly parish by parish. But the bishop was very clear that he wanted to say to parishes, you do what you are able to do. And if you're not able to do the sanitation to get Mass there 5 days a week, don't open for 5 days a week. Do what you're able to do and do it well.
Ultimately, it is the safety of the people that we're looking at.
And most of the plans to reopen have to do something with how do we gradually let people in? How do we do this in a fair way? And like we too are dealing with on the Sunday live stream, that's where we're going to be dealing with everybody who's waiting for a particular sacrament. And we too have a sign-in system, sort of with the banner, you were invited to the wedding feast of the Lamb. We hope the Catholics will understand that means Mass. We're not overwhelmed with requests either. People are very cautious right now. we had a funeral on Wednesday with about 20 people. And I was struck that the family said, do we have to go to communion? We just feel that feels like such a risk to that small engagement of receiving food from somebody else's hand. And I said, that's up to you. And they didn't. They declined to receive Holy Communion. So that tells me there may be a lot of folks that, while the newspapers are all full of those who are standing in front of state capitals, protesting, demanding to go into restaurants and bars, there are a lot of people who are still very cautious, still very afraid that they could be ill, that they could be carriers of illness.
And there's several questions that go off of that too, so we will get to all of them. This next question comes from Joseph Kuna. Father McCreary, will you be holding Graveside Memorial Day Mass?
No, I will not, sadly. And I want to preface that by saying that in the decision to not do that, I am saying no to celebrating Mass in the cemetery where both my parents are buried. That did not come easily, but it is one of the most uncontrollable spaces I can imagine. You know, people are coming from many directions. There's no way to process people in and out the driveway. They're coming from the graves that they're visiting. And it did just seem that was full of unnecessary risk and not one of the pieces that we could easily manage. Memorial Day would be better managed in our parish churches.
And same goes for St. Joseph the Worker. We won't be holding a Memorial Day Mass in the cemetery either for the same reason.
Sadly.
Yeah. All right, Lucas Bauer asks, how will the distribution of communion change after COVID-19?
It's a great question. You know, we know what's going on during this yellow phase because we are planning for it. We're trying to figure it out and stuff like that. What is life going to be like after it? And I think, you know, it's different people have a better understanding of this because I think Father Glenn has a story about somebody from the Spanish flu that was going through it and how long it took them to get back to it.
That was on a documentary some years ago, yes. And it was something, the Spanish flu was in 1918, and this survivor was interviewed, and he was asked, when did life get back to normal? When did people start going to social events, to big events? And he said probably about 1921. So there was a significant lapse of time.
Yeah. So the distribution, I think, will probably go back to a relatively normal state after COVID-19, but when that will happen, that's a great question.
One of the curious pieces is that currently what's going to happen the next time you go to Mass is that communion will be given after Mass is finished. In other words, the priest will receive his own communion, say the prayer after communion, give brief announcements, bless the people, go in peace, amen, kiss the altar. Then he will give you communion, and you will be told to do what for half a century we've been telling you never to do. You will be told to leave church immediately after communion. So for those of you who have been sneaking out, you got what you always wanted. But what we hope is after COVID-19, we can get you to stay in the church and sing that last hymn and be part of the community to the end. Good luck to us all.
All right, this next question comes from Madison Minier. I don't know if you're already answered this question or not, but are confirmation kids going to have to take another year of confirmation classes to get confirmed? I guess I can answer this for Madison. The answer is no. You won't have to wait hopefully you won't have to wait another year to be confirmed, but you won't have to take another year of classes. So if you met all the requirements for your previous classes, or if you're in level 2, then you won't have to take level 2 again if you completed that level 2. Hopefully confirmations we can get in soon. As far as St. Joseph the Worker goes, you'll be hearing from Father Brian or myself about the details of confirmation, how we hope that looks, whether it's individual at masses or if we try to wait all. As far as the Diocese of Scranton goes, if you're tuning in from anywhere else, the bishop has canceled all of the confirmation celebrations as a large group. So you need to contact your parish to figure out how they're going about doing that if you haven't heard anything already. Anything else, Dad?
And just following off of that, with confirmation, the resurrection as well, particularly with first communion as well. We're going to the same as Saint Joseph of the Worker. I have the first communicants receive first communicants receive first communion as soon as possible, and confirmation as well. And we realize that this is a novel times, and so we definitely know that Catholics have a right to those sacraments because this is these times are strange times, right? The same requirements are gonna just look a little different. So,
And the next question we have is almost the same one.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, for example, there will come a Sunday when we have a family that is preparing a child for either first communion or for confirmation, and most likely, if they are a family with extended family in the area, they're going to have 20 people, and we're going to celebrate. I'm going to confirm that child. I'm going to give first communion to that child. We have one family in our parish that is celebrating both sacraments. They have somebody in the 2nd grade, somebody in the 8th grade. I will most likely invite them to watch their daughter being confirmed and watch their son receiving first communion. So the bishop has certainly delegated pastors, priests to confirm this year, since he is not able to do the large confirmations. So it's large. It's going to be, and it will be much more individual. We're not going to, I don't think, certainly if you wait to the fall, you could possibly have the larger group, but for the most part, we may be looking at a family or 2 families per celebration.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
There'll be about 20-40 when we finish confirming and first communion everybody.
Yeah, and that's
and I think that's one of the things that.
No, I was going to say that's a pretty neat opportunity to have a child being confirmed and another child receiving first communion. That's something that probably wouldn't have happened at all.
And a rare privilege not to have to throw 2 parties in 1 year.
Yeah.
All they have to do is have a graduation, boom. The one thing I do want to say, particularly about confirmation, is that remembering that confirmation is a sacrament of a lived experience. So it's not, it's going to be a little odd because we're in an odd experience right now. So, one of the things about confirmation is that you are taking the responsibility of the faith onto yourself. You're not becoming an adult, as they say. You're not going to be able to drive after you get confirmed or whatever. But, but you're taking this responsibility onto yourself that you are going to live your faith. And so it's coming from Madison, who's one of our confirmandi. And so it's the question that I think all of our confirmandi probably is asking is, how am I supposed to live my faith at this time? Same thing with first communicants. Like, you think about that. I'm going to receive my first Holy Communion, and I'm not sure where I'm going to receive my second Holy Communion. We naturally assume it's going to be next week, and now, no, not so much. So, so this interesting time, it comes to us in these questions of, how do I live my faith as a young adult, as a youth? How am I? And so, I would hope that our confirmandi are doing things now in their prayer life, in their service, in their own experience of God, that they're living their faith. And, and I think that's pretty awesome. So, when that happens, there'll be a fulfillment of that, because we are confirming that you are living your faith. Remember, sacrament of confirmation is not something I earn, but rather something that the church gives. So within that sense of it all, you're living your faith, and we now can confirm that. So maybe, within this COVID-19 period, we can hear great stories of how our confirmandi went out and served the world, or how they kept watch of things online, or how they kept their prayer life alive in the midst of COVID-19 and all this other stuff. And we can see that faith really alive in our young Catholics. So great question, Madison. But I think, again, it's a great opportunity for us to live our faith in a very different way.
Yeah, I don't know if it was out when we first did this, but the quote I saw from somebody was, "I can't wait to see all the saint autobiographies or biographies that are like she or he took on the time of COVID-19 and quarantine and from it became a saint." And I think that'd be really cool to see some of our young people. Mark also asked us to keep the Diocese of Rochester in our prayers, as they will not reach their status, their yellow phase, or maybe moving into coming back into the church for another 8 weeks. So we'll keep Mark and the Diocese of Rochester in prayer.
And that's also true of 7 of the counties in the Diocese of Scranton as well.
Yeah, the Diocese of Scranton is in red. So we're just very fortunate to be in this new phase. At SJW, would we be allowed to have 25 in the parish center as well? And this comes from Diane Renninger.
Right. And that's a great question. I know that there's another question down the pike about, we have such a large church. And it was asked, how many, if we 6-foot distance and we did all this other stuff, how safe would it be in order for us to have people in the church more than 25? But also, can we telecast or simulcast over to the Fleming Center? And the answer to that was we probably could, but the more people you have, the less safe it is. And so having 25, and then the other thing is, the more people you have, the more time it takes in order to cleanse the church and make it clean again. So within that aspect of it all, if we decide to simulcast over to the Fleming Center and the church, we would need to cleanse. Right now, the Fleming Center, no one has been in there since March 16th. So the Fleming Center is perfectly sterile, which is awesome. I think it's the first time it's ever been that way. Anyway, but within that aspect of it all, that's perfectly sterile. If we decided to do that, then what would happen is that we would have to clean the church, and then we would have to clean the Fleming Center. Right now, we have enough volunteers to clean the church for 1 week, and that's it. So going back to Father Glenn's statement, if we don't have people to do the ministries that we need in order for the safety of others, we have to really reevaluate what are we doing. So we can't do it in both places because we don't have the manpower to do that. And also, it's just a safer environment to keep everything centralized. If it comes to a point where we might be able to do that, that might be a possibility as well. And then the final thing that I would say is, to do a simulcast, we need certain individuals who know what they're doing in order to do that. And they can't be at all the masses. So, maybe, and that's what we're doing when we live stream to the homes. So it gives us an opportunity for us to still live stream at least one mass for the weekend, and then having a small amount of people there to try to kind of ease into that a little bit more. So for safety reasons, we decided not to simulcast, and for a myriad of other reasons I just kind of touched on, and then just stick with the church, particularly the front part of the church, in order to get the church cleaned up in an expedient way, in order for us to have another group of people come in for another mass.
One of the other complications that happens when people start to think about, well, can't we go down to the church basement, or can't we go to the other building, is that while we may be maintaining an indoor group of 25, we may be dealing with 50 people going in and out of those buildings. And you would have, if your building were, and I do certainly know how St. Joseph the Worker's physical plan is laid out, but there are places where the second building, the hall, is so separate that you could do that very, very easily without having 2 lines of people suddenly getting dangerously close to each other. So that's another aspect that it seems like an easy fix, but when you and many of these things do, but when then you start to think about, these are the people we need to make sure that group goes in one door and goes out the other door, but not the door that leads into the church, because that means they would be in the way of the people going it gets really, really complicated. I love that Diane's photograph has her smiling as if she's laughing at my answer as I'm talking. That's really wonderful. Those are kind of complications that parishes have to wrestle with. As again, our bottom line is here. We're trying to keep people healthy. We have a strong sense of the common good, and we want to respect human life, especially the human life of those who are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. And things get very complicated quickly if you're following the guidelines. And so practically, though, I think it's possible to get everyone who requests a mass to be able to go to a mass. And so the question just becomes, is it worth it to go through all of that when we could have you in the actual church maybe the next day? So.
All right, Mary Troutman is asking, will there be people posted at the doors of the church to make sure everyone is entering wearing a mask?
And that's part of the people that we have. We have a group of greeters who will be meeting people at the door. They will have masks available, and so they will not only. Now, this is going to rock some people's worlds. I'll tell you this. So they will not only welcome you, but they will also see if you have you had a fever, have you been around anybody with COVID, blah 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 blah. Then they will take you to where you will be seated. That means you will not be in your normal seat, because we need people in certain seats. So they will walk you down the aisle and they will have you sit down and welcome you and all this other such. And then afterwards, those greeters will then go back and stay for the mass and celebrate the mass with everybody that's there. But then after that, they will also help clean the area as well. So the greeters will have kind of like those dual roles a little bit of not only working with the greeting of people, but also the safety of people as well. I think that it's not going to be the normal mass that you might go to, and it won't be your normal pew. So I don't know which one will be more rocky, is that the mass time or the pew place, but you got to work with it here. It's like so. Yeah, so that's how our greeters will be doing that.
And it's not your normal pew; it's in the third of the church that you avoid with a passion. You're going to be in that front third of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And this is pretty much, practically speaking, this will be pretty much across the board, as will the mass piece and having some, the recommend is there be somebody at the door to help process people into the church.
Mm-hmm. And it'll kind of feel like a maitre d', or have like a reservation. At this time, it's at the reservation for the marriage feast of the Lamb. So maybe fit that into how you go about preparing up in that mindset.
And at a wedding, remember, you get assigned a table. And the good tables are up front.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Not at my wedding. Not in the South. That's a very northern thing. At my wedding, it was just our wedding, my wife and I's wedding. It's New Orleans. Is you just start and the party starts and you eat, you party, up and you celebrate. So.
Do y'all have crawfish?
No crawfish. It was amazing food. Shrimp and grits was on the menu. A coconut shrimp. It was amazing. The chef kept adding things. He was like, I really feel like you need another side here. I'm just going to do that. And as a proper Cajun, he just kept adding food and adding food. It was amazing. So.
That's great.
So speaking of making reservations, Jef asked, how does a parish decide who will be the 25 that could attend the mass?
It's largely going to be, once you make in our system, Once you make a reservation, which includes a preference for whether you want an evening, we're going to stagger some of our masses will be in the evening, more appropriate for working people. There will be at least one mass during the week that will be in the morning that might be appropriate for people that are home during the day. You can make, that much choice you get to opt towards, and then it's basically going to be first come, first served. Right? We are not going to. Now, some parishes are paying attention to, for example, if Friday's Mass is being offered for your grandmother and you really want to be part of that, and I think you should, we'll certainly look at that and push you forward. But that let me assure you that if suddenly you have 500 Masses offered for your grandmother, you're not going to get to go to all of them. It's, you can't trick us that easily. But for the most part, it will, and we'll, if you get to go to Mass this Wednesday, you're not, then your name gets back on the end of the list again. So it's a revolving thing, so that other people might have that opportunity. But as like Jesse mentioned, once we get this system working, and when we have a regular system of, this week, for example, Resurrection, we have 2 Masses that are available for reservation, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday. We want to see how it works. We want to make sure we've got all of our pieces running together properly, so that we serve people well. Once we're at a system where we have Mass almost every day, then we're going to be able to pretty much cover everybody that's asking.
Mm-hmm. And the quickest way to sign up in Resurrection is a resurrectiononline.net/RSVP, and there's also links on the front of our webpage as well. So it's filling out a simple form, and then we'll contact you after to confirm it.
You can also telephone the secretary if you need to. Probably the worst way to reserve is to corner the priest in the grocery store. He will forget.
Exactly right.
And you'll be extremely mad at him. And so please don't do that.
That would be bad. One of the other things, just in case Jef wasn't here in the beginning part of it all, to remind people that are logging in now, the 25 people, that includes the priest, the server, the lector, any musicians, any tech people, and the greeters. So like for St. Joe's, if we have all of those people, in reality, we have only about 17 people that can come. So the numbers also change, but the priests and the ministers are counted in those 25. So the way that we have it listed in our bulletin is the priest becomes, of course, you can't have Mass without a priest. So, you have to have a priest there. But then after that comes the ministers. After the ministers would come, we are one of those parishes that are opening up to people who have a Mass dedicated to that of a loved one. So we will be inviting them. And then after that would be anybody going through the sacraments of initiation. And then after those going through the sacraments of initiation, then it opens up to the general population. So that's kind of like the priority that we have at St. Joe's, because we want to bring people into the faith and celebrate with them, absolutely. But we also our Masses are booked a year or a little bit more ahead of time, so we don't have to worry about the 500 some like that at the end. But it does, it's people have 1-year anniversaries coming up, and we had a lot of people pass away last year, God bless them. And so because of that, a lot of 1-year anniversaries are coming up now, and people want to mourn, especially now with the loss of their loved ones. So we want to give them that opportunity to do so, and to kind of continue that process of dedicating them to God. So that's kind of like why we have that as a priority.
And again, every parish is reach out to your own parish to get your reservation for Mass, or how are they handling that? A lot of wedding talk on here. So shout out to Allison. This question comes from Lauren Cooley. Throughout this time, what positives have you found within your spiritual life that you would be willing to share with us for some spiritual inspiration? And it goes quiet.
A lot. Again, you know, what our firefighters or police officers or first responders are doing, what our doctors and our nurses are doing, what our priests are doing, and the chaplains that are over at the hospital, and how they are caring for people who are sometimes dying alone, and how they are holding their hand and just being with them. You know, there's been times of great sorrow found within absence, but also a time of great joy calling us back to community and what it means to be part of a family of faith. That we are not, like, going back to what they say in scripture, we do not mourn like the rest who have no hope. Our hope is in a Savior who rose from the dead, who conquered sin and death, and who lives and reigns forever and ever. That's what we live for, and that's who we follow. And that's really been so apparent with the journey that we've been on for the last couple months, is that no matter how strong this virus may seem, and no matter how much fear is being presented in varieties of media, you know, the love and the care of a person and the prayer of a person is and it's really, really awesome. So
I think some of the positives that I've experienced have really had to do with how much I do value things when I don't have them. You know, when I see somebody in the grocery store that I used to see every day at Mass, it's really a wonderful thing to see them. There was the cantor that was at the funeral Mass on Wednesday. I've not seen since we went into quarantine, and it's just truly, truly wonderful to see people that were part of your daily life and that just aren't there right now. I mean, and yes, I know people are. I see who watches the who messages at the end of live stream Mass on Sunday, but it's not quite the same. I mean, it's very touching to see, and especially when you see people that I've had a couple couples that I witnessed their marriages over the last several years, and they're opting to watch Resurrection on Sunday morning instead of their parish in Georgia or in Michigan, and there's something really wonderful about those connections that, you know, that at a moment of crisis they wanted to know, you know, what are they doing back at church where I was married. And you know, there have been really very great blessings that I think remind us that we are a community, remind us that we belong to one another, and remind us we belong to one another because of Christ who gives himself as the bread of life.
And with me, as a layperson, I remember the first week after public masses stopped, and looking back, it was almost like all of a sudden I was able to be at Mass because I was live streaming it at Resurrection, and I definitely felt this more of a responsibility, more of a sense that I had been taking of receiving Christ in the Eucharist for granted, and I felt more of a responsibility to be the spiritual leader in my home, and I've been kind of noticed ways in which maybe I could step it up a little bit, and so it's been almost I've almost because I'm Catholic, right? I have a little bit of guilt that I've been able to go to Mass every week since this has started, but I have found myself preparing more to receive. I've been my prayers, and I've been just I've been my mode of reception, and so and I've been that like in my life, and um, I've been particularly those of a couple people who have been able to come to a daily mass because they were lector or they were helping out. They've said, like I'm almost crying, and so there is good in all of this, and so eh, I mean, so it's been just my own like realizing what I had been taking for granted. So
Yeah, I think along with Jesse, I'm helping to live stream a mass actually in the Diocese of Harrisburg and Milton. And at first there was that feeling of guilt. And I think it was Jesse that even told me that it's how are you receiving that Eucharist with nobody else can, and then how are you bringing that to other people through your actions, through your words throughout the day, because you are that living tabernacle. So I think that helped a lot. As far as spiritual inspiration or things that I have found in this time has simply been to determine what is actually necessary and what can be let go of. And then that opens up a lot more time for prayer, a lot more time for spiritual reading, and a lot more time for just discernment and prayer. And a lot of like heads, it's like my mind isn't racing all the time. So I have more time to sit in the classroom of silence to listen to God. And sometimes I just go to Him and pray and not listen. This extra time is giving more time to listen and that, and then also more time to understand the joy in the season. There's always joy in the season, even though it's hard. We have to get through it by going literally through it. There's no way around it. We can't skip over quarantine. We can't skip over this time in the church. We have to work through it. So it's how are we working through that and how are we living that joy? And I think that that's helped my spiritual life a lot, just to take a step back from everything. As a minister, you're constantly serving others and you forget about refilling your own bucket. So this time has been an opportunity to do that with still serving others in some capacity. So Becky and Diane commented into how are they living their spiritual life. So a lot of people are reading more, a lot of people are praying more, finding that quiet moment. And so it's really good to see. We do have one question here about holy water. So Paul writes in, Father Brian, I'm out of holy water. How can I get some? Can I make it myself? If so, is there a prayer to say?
Yeah, there's no particular prayer. You just boil the hell out of it. But anyway, so
For that one.
Anyway, I couldn't. Oh my gosh, no. That was right over the middle, right there. So it's like, not that I got knocked out of the park. If you have a container for holy water, by all means, just come to the. We're there from 9 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm usually in the office. Just call ahead if you need, and I'll be happy to bless some holy water at the door. And to allow, and to bring that sacramental back into your home. We don't have any holy water in the church itself. And just because of, again, safety reasons and all that. But so if you do need some holy water and you need a container, or you already have a container and you need more holy water, by all means, just stop by the office and be happy to bless them.
And I know that I've encountered questions from people who have said, well, why isn't holy water available? This is not a disease that is that seems to be borne by water. But the problem is holy water is always in something. So you have a big, like we do in our church, a big baptismal font. When people go to put their hands in it, they touch the side of the font. So there's the germ. If you have one of those things that look like a coffee urn, that's fine until somebody presses the button without hand sanitizing. then you've shared whatever you're carrying. So it's not that the water is the problem, it's that the containers are. And I've had people ask, and I've said, I'm in the church every night to lock up. So if you leave water by the office door, I will bless any bottles of water that you happen to have there. So people can get it.
Yeah, as lay people, if we try to bless water, we're shooting blanks. So
the question comes in from Sarah, and this might be directed towards St. Anne's because it looks like Becky's looking for volunteers for her masses. But this might be a question for any parish. How can they volunteer, whether it's a greeter or maybe a lector or cantor or server? Okay. How is that process working?
Right now, and I'll answer that because Sarah is a resurrection parishioner. Right now, we're using the volunteers that we currently have for lectors. We're not using altar servers. The bishop recommends against that. If an altar server is safe distancing, they're not doing their job. I can't see that book at 6 feet. They can't toss the bread and wine at me at 6 feet. So servers are kind of out of there. Musicians are pretty limited. A choir is pretty impossible under these constrictions. It's actually singing propels more of your germs into the atmosphere than merely speaking. That's basic physics. There's nothing you can do about that. We're certainly happy to have people volunteer to help with some of the greeting stuff that we mentioned, to be the person who signs people in, who gives them their mask, who directs them to their seats. There are lots of opportunities there. If we have people who would like to help with the cleaning, I'm sure all of our churches could use, we have our janitorial staffs. I've got 2 sacristans who are cleaning on the days when we're a little thin on janitorial service. But as we move forward and offer more opportunities for prayer, we're going to need more people to do this. So I know wiping down the bottom of the backs of pews with Lysol is not a glamorous thing, but it's a really important thing. It keeps people healthy, saves lives. So that if you want to volunteer, just call and we'll sort out where we need you.
And also, I think, it's volunteering is great in the sense of, beyond COVID-19, so like, for instance, we have a great set of volunteers that work in our food pantry, and they are still working hard, and they've been working hard for years, caring for the poor and the needy who are in the greater Williamsport area, along with Family Promise started back up again. American Rescue Workers is doing great work. So there's a lot of opportunity to not only volunteer now, but also throughout the coming years. So if if you think of something that this is really Makenzie used a wonderful term, discernment. If this something's rattling in your heart now and thinking, I really haven't lived my faith all that well, and God is now calling me to do something more, whatever that more is. Going back to Father Glenn, talk to us about it. Talk to these beautiful individuals about it, and see where God might be leading you, not only just now, but in your entire life. Where is God leading you to live your faith more deeply? So yeah, by all means, volunteer now. We need them. We need your help. But really, if that's on your heart, maybe God's calling you to a deeper relationship with Him. In that gift of service and servant leadership that we also need in our churches, not only now in times of crisis, but also throughout the normal times of our year as well.
And sometimes there are unusual ways in volunteering. If you read this week's Catholic Light, there was an article about some women in our parish who are volunteering by making masks, and those masks are going to Geisinger. They're filling the basket in the parish as people come back to worship, and this was it was a couple people who decided, there's a need here, and this looks pretty easy, this is pretty basic sewing, I can do that, and they're putting out the masks, and that's they are all people that have been active as volunteers in the church, but their normal volunteer pieces weren't happening anymore. So this became an opportunity to do something. I can do this at home. It's helping people who are sick. It's helping people who are in my parish.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Father Glenn, about sewing masks. I was going to say that even maybe your local parish might need some masks for those that do not have it when they're coming into Mass. And also, how are you serving those around you right now? If you're in a home as students, as kids, are you helping your parents empty the dishwasher without being asked, or taking out the trash, or taking the new puppy for a walk, or whatever it may be, or playing with your siblings? Are you helping with their homeschooling if you're older, younger, whatever it is? How are those random little acts of kindness serving others? Drawing with sidewalk chalk on the, not tonight because it's raining, but are you inspiring others around you and by the way that you're living your life? So I think a lot of people are yearning to get back into their traditional roles in the church, or how are they serving, or how are they being stewards? But how are you doing that at your home? You can still do that. It doesn't have to be within the confinements of the church walls. So there are many ways to do that. Well, I think we got you a volunteer, Father Glenn. Sarah's ready to go to work, cleaning or whatever you need help with. So you'll have to reach out to Sarah at Resurrection.
By the way, your buddy has a really cool beard, Sarah.
Husband.
Just saying.
Yeah.
We call that a husband.
Oh, is that your husband? I don't want to assume. All right. That'd be great.
All right, we are over an hour. Is there anything else that you guys think is important to share with those that are watching? There's still 46 people watching with us live, or potentially watching the replay later.
I just say, be patient. Be patient with your church as we try to work this all out. This is new to us. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have times when we're going to have to say no to you because we didn't get our act together, or we didn't have everything set up. So just be patient. We're all human. We're trying to get through a difficult time, and we're trying to do the best that we can. And if we, 5 years from now when this is all done, we'll look back and know all the ways we should have done it. But right now, every one of us is doing the best we can. So be patient with us.
A little bit of a beard update, Father Ryan.
Thank you. I appreciate that there. That's sad. That's just sad. I think the other the piece of it is also the virtue of gratitude. We've talked a lot about what's going on and all this other such a nation that are to us. But, thank you. Thank you for all your prayers. Thank you for praying for others. Thank you for praying in the streets. Thank you for just being there for others in powerful ways and us out there. That's just awesome. And, and also I think the other piece of it is, so many times we think about, what can we do for the parish? What can we do for God? And that is just allowing us to be open to the power of the Holy Spirit. So, part of that is gratitude. What am I really, truly grateful? Am I grateful for my faith? That's a question that we're going to wrestle with this coming weekend within 1 Peter, and where our faith leads us to hope and love that's present to us. So just, sometimes holding the doors open for people, sometimes, just being there and with a smile under a mask and you see the cheeks rise up, or a witty comment to somebody passing by. Give thanks, as was mentioned. And being grateful. And that's really a very present within our heart, and that's what helps many of us to get through these times, is really to recognize what God truly has given us in so many powerful ways, and then sharing that with others. And also, I'm not, it's a great conversation, but thank you for also your generosity. We still have bills to pay, and we still have, these marvelous ministers of the gospel in order to take care of their families and themselves. and all that. And people have been consistently generous, not only for the care of the poor, but also for the ministry that we do as a church. And so in that sense, thank you as well for your generosity, not only in your gifts and your talents, but also in your treasures. It's truly appreciated.
And I would also encourage everyone up at this time, even if you maybe there's a week where maybe just watching the live stream is burning you out, maybe still keep holy the Sabbath. That's a divine law. Read scripture, pray scripture with your family, go over the daily readings that the church provides. And then also but this time I've been able, because of all this, to make a connection with old friends who I haven't talked with in a long time. And so I would say make an effort to call, reach out to people. Maybe that person's on your heart, to make a reconnection back with them, and to keep us in your prayers. And I second what Father McCreary said is I myself have an eagerness to, let's just get back to it. eh, um, um, but I think that going slow, it's we're just asking everyone uh, to be patient, and I mean everyone who kind of gets the benefit of the doubt here. We don't. There is no playbook. There are people who are going to say, as the bishop said in his video, there are people who are going to say we're going too slow. There are people who have already said we're going too fast, and so not everyone is going to be happy. And so let's just give each other the benefit of the doubt. All of us are trying to be as faithful as we can up in the given moment. And I definitely, my second one, Makenzie said earlier, that this is a time to reflect on what is essential, um, and ask that of yourself and in your family. So.
So one quick question from Diane: are the elderly / homebound still receiving monthly communion visits?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that applies to everybody, but less so than they have been. Nursing homes are very restricted unless a person is actively dying. We're being very cautious because the elderly and the homebound are probably one of our most vulnerable populations, and that could be a very frightening thing to think of, a minister going from house to house to house, sharing whatever might have been breathed in. I do hear, though, that on the upside of things, the live stream masses have become enormously popular in nursing homes. They love us for that, because now they're not seeing just some mass somewhere. They're seeing something local. They're seeing sometimes their own parish church. So I hear that people are being gathered into common rooms to watch mass on a Sunday morning, and people are feeling more connected, oddly, at the very time when we're less able to regularly get out there to offer communion.
And the same holds true to the homebound, Father, as well. That's one of the things that we heard from our homebound community is that, they do have that connection a little bit more strongly now because of the live stream. So, yeah, it's been crazy, but there's a lot of good blessings.
Anything else to wrap us up here?
Hmm.
No burning thoughts in our hearts here.
I just thank
You
you
think maybe
everyone
we could
who
do-
stayed.
Do you think we could do this when we go green?
we go green in person? Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe,
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
This is
so
We'll take a poll if people want to continue it. I don't even know if my wife watched the whole thing. So
I do want to make one comment from the last time we did this. This is only Coca-Cola. So I just want to make perfectly clear on that.
Right, Father.
not
It's all it is. It's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to continue to do this. Sorry it took us some time to get back on and have this discussion again. But as you can imagine, life's been crazy, and just trying to get used to this, maybe new normal or something different, at least in our world. So thank you for tuning in. There was like 60 people on tonight that I could see at least. And if you're watching the replay, you can still ask your questions and we'll go back through and answer them as we see them. And then hopefully we can come back together. Who knows what the future holds? We're living in the yellow phase right now. Hopefully we'll be moving to the green phase and we'll be able to be with you again soon. Is there anything? Who wants to maybe close us off in prayer?
Father Brian.
Makenzie, why don't you, because you haven't been answering any questions as readily as Father and I have. So I'm
Okay.
a little in the mouth.
Fathers are talked out tonight. All right. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Holy Spirit, teach us how to pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering us here tonight, even within our own homes, but as one united body of Catholics, as we come to you tonight, as we enter into the yellow phase with a new uncertainty of life, that you may take away any fear that we may have, any anxiety that we may have about regathering together, that you may bless those that joined us, that you may bless those that were a part of this and our parishes as we begin to open up. And we especially keep in prayer those parishes that are not able to gather at this time, that are still in their homes, that are still watching virtual Mass. We bless all those that are always watching virtual Mass, that never have the opportunity to come to church, that are homebound, that are sick. We pray for any of our intentions that are placed in our hearts. And we ask Mother Mary to intercede for us tonight as we say together, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Again, thank you for joining us here tonight. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact your local parish, your local diocese, from wherever you're tuning into. And hopefully we'll see you back either here or at Mass soon.
Okay, farewell.